Okay, so today we're going to talk about creativity and how the lack of it or the flowing into it can really expand or shrink our lives. Antoinette Wells and Katie Headlam.
Oh my God, you put us just now on the podium.
It's just
I was just wanting to be spontaneous about it.
Yeah, no, we are. I mean, it's just a chat.
Yeah. I think creativity is the zest of life. You know what I mean? It is like, the zest of life. Because it encompasses so many different feelings. It encompasses the desire, it encompasses the action, and then the result, and also, of course, the feelings which go with that. And if we accept, and that's all the book of Julia Cameron, if we accept that we don't need to be perfect when we create, then we can access the joy of the creativity. See what I mean? We don't get frustrated, we don't get, oh, this is not good enough, etc. And and it's like a child. It actually talks a lot about being a child, and it's true. When you create, you are like a child. You are just trying to be in the moment, in the present. I think that's really important. I know that when I paint, I'm just gone. I'm just in the present. I don't want to eat. I don't want to do anything else. I'm absolutely in the zone, and that happens every time. Yeah. Not that my works are absolutely amazing, kind of works of art or kind of masterwork or whatever, but it's the proceeding of doing it gives me so much joy and satisfaction that it is a must in my life. It is like the zest in my life. And actually at the moment I'm just thinking of what kind of subject will come to mind for me to do something else, but I really feel itchy fingers again. I want to paint again, so
that's the lovely thing, isn't it, when you start to actually feel something bubbling up and an urge to create, whether it be painting, cooking, changing a room around, doing anything that actually takes you into a new direction. It can be extremely therapeutic. It's just it's like you were saying, it's the zest of life. I also feel it's something, it's just us that is part of being a human being and part of growing, and it's so easy to actually be blocked and to stop that from flowing. And I think that's what this creative journey that we've been going on has really helped with, is actually identifying where those blocks are inside us and how they got there in the first place, and how everybody has creativity in them. It's not just for people who are definitely called artists. It could be anything. It could be really just anybody in life. We all need to feel that we're free to be ourselves, and that's what that zest is. It's that freedom to express.
When you say freedom and being like a child, for me it means being in that state of exploration. It's like an adventurous kind of feeling, rather than being productive, knowing already what kind of finished thing you want to make or you want to do. Because at the moment you already know what you want to create, you're kind of lost. You're not in that flow anymore, which means you've got to recognize there's a flow bigger than you, bigger than your mind, that you want to get into. And then you're like a fish, you've got to be in the water, and the water, you don't decide how the water goes, you're just a fish.
It's very good self-confidence as well, to get into that space where you don't feel you've got to be perfect. There's no point in doing it unless it is something amazing. But of just accepting, okay, I feel like doing this now, and I'm going to see how it makes me feel, not I'm going to see what I actually produce.
Yeah.
And then that ripples on into other relationships.
Absolutely.
I've found it a huge marker in my relationships with my children, for instance. When I'm looking at them and thinking that they're not using their time productively, and I feel I've got to hassle them and start checking up on them, especially in this lockdown, and criticize the way they're using their time. Those are the times I normally find that I've actually not been creative myself, and I haven't done all the things that I really want to do. I feel like I'm doing things for other people more, and it's sort of out of balance. So then the other times, when I do actually manage to give myself time to channel that creativity, I'm completely relaxed, and that seems to spread to them as well, seems to spread to the rest of the family. I don't know if have you ever had experiences of that?
Yeah, I find that it's a matter of energy. When you really give yourself that time, that space, it pays you back with so much renewed energy, which you can then give back to everybody around you. And sometimes when you don't give yourself that space and you just keep on doing your duty for kind of day, and you go from one duty to the other, even if it's tiny little things, but you're really missing out, then at the end of the day, you're absolutely shattered and exhausted, whether instead you spend the same amount of time or even half of that or even a quarter of that doing something when you are in the flow, then the energy is like 10 times as much, and everybody around you feel it as well.
Well, also, it does a weird thing to time, I found. So there are those days where there's a whole list of to-dos before being able to have time for oneself to do whatever. And it seems that the day is never long enough. It doesn't matter how many hours there are in it, it's never long enough. And then if it's turned the other way around and that creativity is given first place, everything else just slots into place and it's all done and there's time spare to do other things. Have you ever found that?
Yeah. Do you find that, Antoinette?
Well, that's very interesting. I never thought about that, but it's true, I think. And I was just thinking how it is such a gratification to do something that it's actually quite selfish, selfish in a very nice way. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that what Katie just said is very plausible. That if you do that and then you are really satisfied, actually your Nadi is satisfied as well, and your Saraswati is satisfied, then you are ready to do other things. Things fall into place.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's because you are within yourself as an artist. Then it's because you are giving the chance of this child artist to be, and you are not kind of avoiding him, and that's so important, I think.
Gosh, it's so important. I feel, well, in myself, I feel like if I ignore my creativity for long enough, there's this tantrum child brewing inside. Quite horrible. It's going to have a fit. But why is it that we stop ourselves? I mean, and that is a topic that many people will probably never even give themselves permission to be creative because they feel guilty that they shouldn't have the time, that their time is for other things.
I think there's a lot to do with the way you've been brought up. I mean, unless you are the child of, an established artist or musician, then no one's going to tell you that playing about, is a constructive and productive thing, because it's like another form of materialism. I mean, we've been bred with materialism from generation into generation into generation. It's just a subtle form of it where you always have to be on the go and produce, and then if you are an artist, it has to be art with a big A, and that creates more pressure. And then in the end, who wants to have that pressure? Better not even try. And then in the end, you kind of miss out on the best thing you can possibly be or you can possibly do.
And it's like it's not well regarded to dream, to daydream, to be in a reverie. And actually, writers and composers have to be in that state.
Mm.
It's very important sometimes to be quiet and just be reflective and just not do anything, you know.
Yeah.
And where would you find that in today's society?
Maybe
Huh?
we could bring a bit of that.
You know what? It just reminded me of a sentence that Sri Mataji told me actually. A very long time ago, and I think it was in 1992 or something. And she had come to see our house in Wandsworth, which was a beautiful house. Katie stayed there in this house. And she was in the kitchen, Sri Mataji, and suddenly she turned to me and she said, Antoinette, you have to stop to be a human doing and become a human being.
That's it.
That's it, really, isn't it?
That kind of summarizes a lot.
I was doing sahajayoga right, left, and center, having meeting in my house, doing this, doing that. We were an ashram as well. I mean, I was doing. And then after that, things changed slowly. First, we had artists coming in our house. Like Robert came, you know, and Katie came, and then we started creating. You remember?
It's amazing. Amazing times.
Started to do this amazing painting together, and then
Painting.
and then there was another artist also who came when they left, and then we sold the house, and we went to Gloucestershire, and there I started my 5 years course to become a therapist. It was all part of it, you know. But also in Gloucestershire, I did 10 years of painting with a very good artist, some very good artists who were actually quite, you know, well known in the area, did very beautiful exhibition. So every week I would attend a workshop and you know, paint for 3 hours every week. So that was really a regular thing in the brewery art in Cirencester.
Yeah, I just have this feeling that if everybody was given the chance to develop one creative skill, like dancing, music, writing, poetry, art, film, everybody at school from a young age was encouraged to just have one of those, it will give them a huge help with their mental health and emotional, physical, you know, everything would ripple on. But I mean, ever since I was at school, the arts have been cut, you know, government funding gone, any community arts projects axed first. And it's just so essential for that feeling of connection to yourself, because everything else is learned. It's all on the outside. It's to make money, or you've got a family. And I mean, I find for myself now in the space where the kids are growing up, and suddenly they don't need me in the same way. They're not like my little babies that I have to look after all the time, and I get to say what their journey is. Suddenly they're in a phase where they need to find themselves. So suddenly I'm finding I have to find my own extra therapy for myself. And that's why I think now is the perfect time to go into that creativity. And I'm really surprised. I went to a craft fair many years ago, and there were the most beautiful stalls of pottery, handmade pottery, beautiful. And then the next stall was incredible paintings, very original, nothing fashionable, just extremely unusual, with many different influences in there. And I thought, gosh, who are these people and where do they come from? Anyway, I just had this intuition that they were all older people whose families had just grown up and they just got into their own creativity, and that was it. I talked to many of the people there, and they were all, there were maybe 2 men, but mostly they were women whose kids were too much gone off, when they either left home or, you know, they'd grown up, and they suddenly had time to get back to their creativity and living from it.
And maybe all these kind of middle life crisis and all of that, it wouldn't be so bad, it wouldn't be so hard or so difficult if you actually prepare yourself to get to that point of life where you're fully into the flow and you know yourself and you know that you can use. That's why I love doing, you know, the creative workshops, as we explore writing, drawing, painting, body mapping. There's so many different things that you can combine together.
Absolutely.
It doesn't really matter what it is, does it? Even cooking.
Yeah, sure. And the funny thing is that because of the way we've been brought up, most people think that either you are born an artist or there's no creativity within yourself. But actually, all the little children are creative, and normally they get cut. How do you say? Like they get they all produce amazing drawings actually when they're small, and then they go to school, and that's it.
It's from a certain age, right? Now we're going to get serious. We're just going to do academic work, and all their creativity that was so encouraged is just drying up.
Yeah.
And I think do you think that could be a reason why so many people who take to creative pursuits later on in life feel, oh, I better stop because I'm too old, not realizing that there is no age limit on creativity.
Yeah. Actually,
Absolutely.
I think creativity keeps you young as well, because it keeps you, like you said, it keeps you in touch with yourself, with that really young part, with the joyful, playful part that believes in mystery and is ready to be amazed and is ready to find miracles around, and then they appear. Like, it's not like you're cheating on yourself. Things actually do happen once you get into that flow.
Well, yeah, like Antoinette was saying, you forget about the time, you forget to eat and all these things. I think that's why I didn't do very much when the children were small, because I thought I wouldn't actually remember to feed them. But, it's so amazing how it keeps you in the present moment. And they've done all these kind of data compilations about people who do something regularly, like embroidery or painting or pottery and things like that. They live much longer.
That's interesting. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. Yeah.
Because you find also so physical, like you have to use your mind, your emotions, your body. Is even on your body, like you try and do a painting, and maybe you're gonna end up being there 10 hours. Like you need the physique as well.
Yeah, after 5 hours, I finished. I remember once I did the painting. I started. It was in Gloucestershire, and I was just gone for 5 hours. I said, and they said, well, it was a workshop, so you would do 5 hours. I said, I'm going to finish this painting, and I'm going to do it. So, and then through the painting, there's so much. It's so fresh because I just did it, spontaneously, and I did some roses. It was some roses, but it was just, it was just kind of. I'm not going to finish it. It has to go in that flow. I'm not going to interrupt it.
And it's very.
And then it transpires. Ça transparaît. How do you say that in English? It transpires through the painting itself, so yeah.
Antoinette, do you find, from what you say, I guess then you work in bursts as well, like instead of like doing every day half an hour, you might do one day 5 hours and then nothing for a week, and then another long.
Yeah. Well, it depends. It was, of course, being a mother of 5, I couldn't do this kind of thing. So at my time, so I had to set up. I had to set aside some time and all that.
Wow.
But otherwise, yes, if I am kind of engaged in something, I can go for it. Yeah, I am this kind of person. Yeah, like when I was skiing, I would ski for 5 hours or so. I used to love skiing in the mountain. My God, it was amazing.
It's like being a part of Nutella or whatever.
Just the whole thing.
Just go for it. It's like eating a pot of Nutella or something that you really like. Nutella, sorry.
Well, exactly. Yeah. There's something like that.
Well, there's another way to do it. I found this really useful when the kids were small, and I didn't have 5 hours to put to it. Was just to get a very simple project, and so this very, very skilled miniature painter taught us on a summer camp how to do miniature painting. And he'd done the outlines already, which I found I reacted to because I wanted to draw my own outline. So, but I thought, I really haven't got time to learn how to do that. So let's just do this in a very simple way. And I started learning how to paint in this very specific Indian miniature style. Oh my goodness, that painting took 5 days. So it was just 3 hours for 5 days on the original course. I enjoyed it so much because it was incredibly satisfying. And then he gave me a photocopy of a pre-done Indian miniature to take home with me back to England. And I got all the equipment, and it took up very little space. And I drew this little miniature. It took me maybe one day, I did half the drawing, the next day, the next half. And I got so into it. It's like a jigsaw puzzle, like a book. You've got to get back to it. It must have taken me 2 months to finish, but it was so satisfying. So I feel like when you've got a little tiny project on the go, it can give you that same satisfaction as having a whole day to do it, or a whole week, or having to have an entire studio. You could have just a little project that helps you.
It's a bit like a tapestry that you you do some stitches, and then you can leave it, and then you go back to it, and you improve the pattern, isn't it?
Yeah. No, also when you say tapestry, like, you make me think that tapestry needs lots of different colored threads, and I find that for myself, I find that when you've got more than one thing on the go, it actually helps. So instead of starting one thing until you finish it, and then it seems that the finishing point is so hard to achieve, because it's always a bit hard to know, is it finished or should I keep on going? But if you've got 2 or 3 things at a time, each feeds the other. So if you've got some writing to do, or an oil painting, and maybe a sculpture with clay or something else, or an embroidery project, and then you really go with the flow with what you feel that day, and then it kind of comes and it feeds into the other bits. So it's like having downtime, but actually still being in the flow.
I used to feel the only thing I could get creative
This
about
is luxury, Katharina.
Yeah, of course, of course. But I'm just thinking about, I don't know, I'm just thinking about lots of people now that are in lockdown, and they had how do you say, the furlough thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've had a lot of people getting bored, and once you've done your cake for today and you've done your run around the block and you talk to your friends on Skype or Zoom or whatever, then what else? And so they could do different things, really find out more about themselves. That's one way.
One good way is those morning pages. That was a real revelation to me. To discover what I actually wanted to do with my creativity was this idea that you write a journal every single day, and you must write 3 pages without stopping, without thinking what you want to write. But it gives your that part of your brain which is just free flowing to come out with ideas that perhaps you wouldn't normally have noticed. I like that so much. And then that was a creative journey in itself. I don't know, maybe you can explain a bit more about how that works.
Well,
the morning pages.
The free flow of writing. Antoinette, how do you find the free flow of writing? Or if you have another way of explaining.
Not that easy, actually. I have, sometimes it really goes really well, and I do like nearly 3 pages, and sometimes I do half a page, and then I just, need to take the dog out, or need to, I just don't do them. And also it's funny because I just in my head, it has to have some meaning. I don't feel like kind of writing just for the sake of writing. That's difficult for me to just doodle in writing, if you want to.
Yeah.
Having done a lot of writings in my life, they had always to be meaningful, like, all the essays I did in my life, etc. and even writing letters. I love to write letters. I much more prefer to write letters than to write emails actually to somebody.
Yeah.
If I can, it's so much nicer.
And
But,
do you know, there's one exercise that I really love in the therapeutic writing, which is you write a letter to yourself from another time. So, for example, if you you imagine that you are 25 years older, and so you write a letter to yourself now, or to your younger self even before now,
yeah.
and then and then
we used to ask our patients to do that, to do a letter, as in recovery now, at your age, at this time of your life, please write a letter to your younger self. Oh my God, it's very moving.
yeah.
And they had to read it out loud in group.
Wow.
So that's a tool we used in therapy.
And what did you find? Did you find that people were actually really supportive of themselves and encouraging, or what did you find?
Oh, I think it was very moving and quite powerful, because sometimes these letters were expressing a lot of regrets, and also some advice, etc. But they were very meaningful. It's a powerful tool to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find with the writing, the thing that really excites me is how you, before you start, you've no idea that there's actually another self inside, the writing self. And it's the one who's really wise, and maybe you never knew there was that self inside. And it's only when you start writing and you ask a question, then who's that person answering? And yet you do get the answer, and it's the wiser self. So it's it's like another way of inquiry that brings you closer to your higher self, I guess how they call it now.
That's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because that is a very interesting concept, which I think a lot of people find very difficult to engage with, the idea that there might be a higher self that we could each know. It's always been a bit of a mystery. Like we're not supposed to know that higher self, but what if we are, and what if creativity is a way to get to it?
Exactly.
And to hear the messages and hear what maybe that's our real urges, like this zest. I love what Antoinette said at the beginning about the zest of life, but maybe this is the zest of life. It's this higher self waiting to be in the present moment, to be this real human being,
to be
not a human being, to be heard. And that's the self that comes out on the page, in the pottery, in the embroidery, and the dancing. It gets expressed.
Because to be honest, when you think about the higher self or the spirit, it can be a bit scary as well. Like who's that? Is that, have I got something inside I don't know about? I haven't seen it, I can't touch it, I can't see it, I can't smell it. It's kind of a bit weird.
That's a good point, Katharina.
Yes.
Like this kind of misidentification that we can have. Like, what was God in our childhood? Was this kind of old man with a beard? Or was it, you know what I mean? God the Father? Or, I mean, all this misidentification, and that's all these conditionings from upbringing. They can, even the spirit. I sometimes have to kind of detach still now of Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And the idea, the input of what was given by the Catholic Church is incredible.
It's so ingrained. I had the same background, so I can relate really well to that. And
like when you talk about the Holy Spirit, I immediately see a dove, So that's my perception as a child, But I mean, it's sometimes, for me, the 12 steps have been fantastic because it has been very liberating. Because this notion of a higher power is just so, it's not abstract actually. It really relates much more towards an energy.
Yeah.
And I like this idea it's not an idea, actually. I like the fact that God could be an energy and not just a person, or something like that.
Yeah. Energy in movement, energy that
Exactly.
creates and moves
Exactly.
things.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
those tribal paintings, there's so much movement and all those dots and everything is connected.
So that's all. So to be creative, actually, you really need to shed all the conditionings also, and maybe keep some good things that you saw in your childhood or that you got, but the kind of rigid conditionings, they need to be shed. They need to
Yeah.
be left behind.
And Antoinette, when you use creativity as a tool in art therapy sessions, do you find that the creative journey itself helps us to shed those layers, or
Yeah, and it was really revelations for them sometimes. I have an example. There was it was done in group. It was not being done one-to-one, but we had a class for that, and we had a board, and they had pencils and brush and watercolor, whatever. And they had big kind of sheets of paper. And I had topics, like, for instance, I give you the topic I want to talk about. I gave the topic of anger. And for that, I asked them to draw a volcano, and then to fill the volcano with the lava, the dust, and the rocks going out, and then the lavas flowing on the side, etc. I mean, all that. And to attach the feelings they had, drawing all that, you see. So it was fascinating, actually, what they can. I was quite simple. They didn't need to be big artists to do that. You see what I mean? Everybody can
yes,
kind of draw a cone, etc. And some actually discovered after the end of their treatment that they were artists, that they could actually paint very well, and they didn't know that. That's another thing. But this particular man was very angry and didn't know he was very angry. It was completely suppressed. So in his volcano, it was very interesting. There was just little puffs of smoke at the top of the volcano, but no lava. But inside the volcano, he was putting red and purple and everything inside the volcano, yes? And then the rocks, there was hardly any rocks going out, again, no rocks going out, just a little bit of lava on the flank of the volcano. So when we debriefed the thing, we looked at it, and we asked him what he drew and what he felt about it. And first he said, "Who is the volcano?" I asked him. And then he discovered that the volcano is him, so this cone is himself. And but it was much more than that. So what we saw at some point, he had put some rocks in the volcano as well, but they were put in a way that it actually outlined a very angry face in the volcano. So you could see, and I said, and I also asked the other patients, "Can you see what I see in the volcano?" Say, "Oh yeah, that's very interesting, really." And then he could see that. He could see, actually he saw himself in this outline of lava and rocks inside the volcano, which actually made a kind of very angry expression of a face. For him, he told me that it was a turning point for him then.
Yeah, because sometimes,
Actually, yeah.
sorry,
So,
sometimes I
yeah,
find,
that's the story. Yeah. Mm.
I found sometimes you don't really, you can't actually access your feelings, especially if you've been through some trauma. It's impossible to actually
Yeah, of
let
course.
yourself feel. But then with your drawing tool, writing tool, whatever you've got, the moment you really connect with it and you connect with the paper, like you actually touch and becomes like a sensorial experience, suddenly something opens up and you allow yourself to feel. It's quite incredible. It's so simple and it's so, yeah. And also with cooking, sometimes that I used to do cooking lessons in Glasgow, in Edinburgh, with my children's friends when they were little. And some of the children, you could see they've never been allowed to make themselves dirty or to touch flour or eggs or things, and they were absolutely terrified. And some of them really didn't want to. And then once they relaxed enough and got into it, their face changed, and it was like suddenly they could express whatever that feeling was. And then I got feedback from parents like, what did you do? Like suddenly it was like having another child in the house, and we didn't do anything. We just prepared the space. It was almost like a sacred space, the kitchen, for them to just touch and get in touch with, through the sensorial experience, to get in touch with their feelings.
Wow.
Pent it up and everything.
Amazing.
Well, art is definitely a savior, I think, for everybody. I think we all come with a lot of creativity, and if we could really tap into it, know it, and flow with it, I think the world will be different in no time. I mean, I don't think,
But you see, I think what the thing has done, like our civilization has actually cut so much of this spontaneous, like in Africa, the dance, their creativity is wonderful dance, etc. And like you talked about the children now, I just think Maria Montessori, who was a realized soul, it was very important for the children to touch all the fabrics, to touch, wood, to touch. I worked with that, when we were asked to create a kindergarten in the early days, and we inspired ourselves from Maria Montessori, and she's amazing. I mean, now some schools are a bit more rigid, but her ideas were that let the children experiment, experiment with all the matter, with the with the earth, with the leaves, etc. And then they learn from that. My little grandchild is in Montessori school. She absolutely loves it. So,
well, it activates another part of the brain, because otherwise it's terrible.
Yeah, exactly.
You need all,
and we need to absolutely go back to that and keep that. And it's like, like when we were children, we were very fortunate to spend all our holidays in the mountains, and going in the woods, going climbing mountains and all that. So the experience with nature were very powerful.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. If we can have that connection with nature,
exactly,
it's going to awaken a whole nother side of ourselves, which has been sleeping. Especially when we live in towns and things, we may not get so much access. But I think even then, I mean, I've lived in cities. I did grow up in the countryside, but even living in the city, I think if you've been raised in the countryside and you've had a close connection with nature, you will seek it out. You will go and find that tree in the park. You will look at the sky. You will notice what's happening in the turning of the seasons. And it's, this is something that is becoming modern science. So you've got your forest bathing experiences in Japan, and they've discovered that the hormones that come from the trees interact with those that we need to calm down. So just lying down under the trees, surrounded by that beauty, you're not having to do anything or make anything. You're just part of that incredibly rich, colourful scenery.
There's a sense of abundance when you can really use all your senses and connect with nature. And that it kind of goes in contrast with the sense of lack and neediness and greed that is so much in our times, where you're always striving for more and something else, and do more and be more productive so you can achieve more. When actually, if you really connect with that, you are a part and parcel of this incredible abundance. I think creativity also is about the flow of abundance within ourselves. And once you connect with that, you just can't do without, and you feel so much more satisfied with that.